You ever seen ice melt? Or paper burn? Or sugar dissolve into water? These are all examples of matter changing. But it's not exactly the same type of change. Today we're going to talk about physical changes and chemical changes, what they are, how to tell the difference, and why it matters. Let's get started. All right, let's start with physical change. With a physical change, the most important part of it is that there is no new substance created. What does that even mean? When we have a physical change, that means that the matter is changing its form, but its chemical structure is staying the same. So since the molecules are staying the same, there's no new substance created. There's nothing new from that reaction. It means that what you started with is what you end with. Even though the shape, size, or phase may look a little bit different, the composition of the substance stays the same. Some examples of a physical change are ice melting into water, sugar dissolving, or tearing paper into smaller pieces. In all of these examples, the substance itself stays the same. It's just changing its physical state or its appearance. And the best part of a physical change is that it is reversible. When we take ice and melt it into water, we can just take that water and freeze it into ice. Same thing. Now let's talk about chemical changes. Chemical changes are a little bit different, and the most important part is that a new substance is created. A chemical change is what happens when matter is changed into something new. The atoms rearrange and a new substance with different properties is formed. This means the original substance no longer exists in its previous state. Some examples of a chemical change are burning paper and turning it into ash and gas. Rusting iron, it forms a new substance of iron oxide. When we cook an egg, the heating causes a chemical reaction and a chemical change. These are all examples of a chemical change because a new substance has been created. Unlike physical changes, chemical changes are not reversible. Once paper is burned and turned into ash and gas, there's no way to get it back. Once an egg is cooked, you can't turn it raw again. This is because a completely new substance has formed through a chemical reaction. So now that we know what a physical change is and we know what a chemical change is, how do we tell the difference and how do we know when a chemical change has occurred? Well, the first thing we're going to look for is there a new substance? And a few things can tell us whether something is new or just a different version of what we started with. When we're looking for a new substance, we can look for a color change. So an example of this is when the leaves turn brown in the fall. We can look for gas production. So when something is fizzing or bubbling or giving off smoke. We can look for a temperature change. So either it has absorbed heat or it gives off heat. And we can check if there's a precipitate formed. So when a solid is formed in the liquid. If you see any of these signs, it's very likely that a new substance has been formed, and thus it's a chemical change. Okay, let's recap. Today we talked about physical changes and chemical changes and how to tell the difference. A physical change is when no new substance is created. What we start with is what we end with. And remember that a physical change is reversible. So some examples of a physical change would be melting, dissolving, cutting, boiling, and breaking. And a chemical change is when there is a new substance. What we start with is different than the thing that we end with. And a chemical change is not reversible. Some examples of a chemical change are burning, rusting, cooking, and oxidizing. And lastly, we talked about the clues of a chemical change. So we can always look for if there's a color change, if a gas is formed, if a precipitate is formed, and if there's a temperature change. All of these are clues that we might have gone through a chemical change. Thanks for watching. And if you found this helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so that you don't miss our next lesson. Thank you.